So we're going to talk about the disappearance of Bryce Laspisa, which is actually a really strange case. I've got some pictures and we'll talk about it as we go along. So 19-year-old Bryce was a talented artist. He had big dreams and he was at university at this time when he went missing. He was studying graphic and industrial design in Sierra College in Rocklin. He had been building a portfolio of his work to one day show, and everything was going really well for him. What happens here, it happens in August of 2013, and he went missing after crashing his car, and he's never been seen since. But we're going to get into kind of the backstory, what happened, and actually what led up to that time, and some of his kind of strange behaviours around that time, which may point to, some answers to questions, but still we're still, 13 years after the fact, we don't have any more answers at all. So Bryce came from a close-knit family. He was raised in Illinois by his parents, Karen and Mike even, and they had decided to relocate to Laguna Niguel in California following their son's high school graduation. So they decided to relocate to California to be closer to where Bryce was going to go to college and kind of just be able to spend more time in the sun, being as they'd raised their son to like an adult and they wanted to move on to do different things. So Bryce had seemed to like living in California. He'd made loads of friends, and then he had began going to Sierra College, like a university campus, which was 7 hours from his parents' home. His freshman year went really well. He was really successful, really popular with the ladies, and kind of met a girlfriend, Kim. And he had started to do really well. So I've got a picture of him with his girlfriend, Kim, here. This is him and Kim. They were exceptionally close and doing really well. And Bryce had started to love the partying and drinking lifestyle of going to university. And by the end of his freshman year, he had started to kind of spiral a little bit. He had been evicted from his dorm room because of his partying, because other people said like it was just getting out of hand. He was either staying up gaming all night or he was out drinking, coming home late. They had school the next day. So he kind of had got evicted. And he decided to stay with his parents over the summer in Laguna Niguel so that he could kind of recenter himself and really put his school head back on. So in August of 2013, he went to Rocklin 2 weeks before classes started to begin his sophomore year. And some of his friends started noticing that he hadn't calmed down. And in fact, he had started to act quite differently. And at some points, they said they were almost a little bit scared of how out of kind of whack he was behaving. He had begun drinking more and more, and he admitted to his friends that he'd started to take an ADHD medication called Vyvanse in large quantities, despite the fact he didn't have ADHD. And he was taking it to stay up all night and study, but he was also taking it just to stay up and play video games. Now, we know that a lot of ADHD products kind of mimic or have amphetamine in them, a speed, in order to make people stay up, be able to work at maximum. But at some point, you've got to come down from that. Thank you, Laura. On August the 28th, so just after he'd gone back to uni, Karen Laspisa received a surprising phone call from her son's college roommate, Sean, and he said that Bryce was taking Vyvanse and drinking heavily, and he said, I want to kind of inform you because I don't know what to do. Bryce has been awake for 3 days in a row, and I'm worried about him, and I don't think I can handle it by myself here. I need some help from his parents. Thank you, Laura, for all the cats. Thank you so much. Now, the same day, Bryce starts to do some things that are very questionable. He gives away his Xbox to a friend. He gives away his favourite diamond earrings, which are a gift for college for him from his mum. And he breaks up with his girlfriend, Kim. After nearly 2 years together, he messages her and says, I think you're better off without me. Now, Bryce sends his roommate a text message saying, I love you, bro. You're seriously the best person I've ever met. You saved my soul. Hey, Grey Host. And these surprising messages and the fact that he'd started to give away his stuff had people feeling that he was going to commit suicide. Now, that night, Bryce calls his mum from his girlfriend's home and he tells his mum, Karen, that he loves her. And she's like, love you too, Bryce. And he says, I love my classes, Mum. I love being at school. I love this semester. Everything's fine. I'm doing well in school. And I'm planning on driving home tonight to see you and Dad. Now, this is 7 hours away, right? And his parents are like, no, you're not. He's like, I'm coming home to see you and Dad. And his mum's like, it's nearly midnight, Bryce. Go home. You're upset you've broken up with your girlfriend. Go back to your dorm, get some sleep, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Because she's already heard from Sean that he's been up for 3 days. And she's like, you're not driving home for 7 hours. So Bryce says, I know, I won't drive over. I'll go to Kim's house instead. His mum's like, I don't really want you driving. I think it's better you get some rest. And she says, I'll buy a plane ticket to come to you if you need me right now. And he's like, no, I don't want you to get a plane ticket to come here. So he says, look, I need to come and speak to you. I've got so much to tell you. And his mum's like, look, go get some sleep. Tomorrow you can either come home or I'll come up there. We'll talk then. I'll phone you. But I need you to get some rest. And she's just being like a normal mum. And so that's what we know is the last kind of time that his mum speaks to him. Then at 1 a.m. on the 29th of August, just a few short hours after Bryce and his mother had spoken, Bryce calls his mum and says, I'm near my apartment, near my dorm, and I'm going to be home soon. But this turns out to be a lie. Karen then receives another phone call at 11 a.m. on the morning of the 29th, so hours later, from her insurance company. And they inform her that 2 hours prior, Bryce's 2003 Toyota Highlander that she placed the insurance on has requested roadside assistance. His vehicle has been stranded in Buttonwillow, which is 3 hours away from his home with his parents. So he's driven at this point for 4 hours towards his parents' home after being up for 3 days. And his mum is kind of shocked that now she's got a company phoning her saying that he needs roadside assistance at 11 a.m. and his car is kind of parked in the middle of nowhere, abandoned. So she discovers there's a charge for Castro Tire and Truck in Buttonwillow. And so it's as if Bryce has run out of gas. He's got his tank filled up, and then he has roadside assistance bring this gas to him because he's run out of gas. So we know that he'd been driving his vehicle at that point for more than 9 hours, but had only got 4 hours towards home. So we don't know where he was the rest of the time. And by that time, he should have arrived at his parents' house. It's 11 a.m. by 3 p.m. at the latest. So his mum is not happy about this, and she's like, I can't speak to Bryce right now, he's not answering the phone. So she gets hold of his roommate, and he's like, Bryce never came home last night. And she starts to panic and not know why Bryce is doing this and why he's not listening, why he's not making much sense. Hey, Gemma loves chicken. I love chicken too. So Karen tracks down the mechanic, Christian, that has taken the petrol, the gas out to his car. And she says to him, can you please go out to where the car was that you gave gas and see if you can find my son, because he's not answering the phone. And he says, okay, yeah, I will. I'll go out. You're a worried mum. It's only about half an hour away from here. I'll go back to where I give him assistance at the roadside. And Bryce is sitting in his vehicle still. He's gone back to the vehicle. He's sitting in the vehicle. And he's saying, I just need sleep. I just need sleep. I just need sleep. So Karen speaks to her son over the phone. And she says, look, I'm really concerned for you, Bryce. Can we pay for you to stay in a hotel? You need to get some rest. And he says, no, I'm driving to your house and I'll be there by 3 p.m. And she's trying to talk him out of it. She's saying, like, I don't think you should. I think you need some rest. And he's like, I want to come home and sleep in my own bed. And at this point, they just all agree that he's got 4 hours of driving to do. By 3 p.m, he's going to be home and she can finally set sights on her son and find out what's wrong. But he never arrives. And he's not answering his phone again. So at this point, she can't completely figure out where Bryce is, where he's been, what he's doing, but she just knows he's not where he's supposed to be. At 6 p.m, 3 hours after he's supposed to arrive back home, she calls the police to file a missing persons report. And she also very proactively phones AT&T, the phone provider, and asks them to do an emergency ping. And she finds that he's still located in Buttonwillow, that he's not moved. And this means he's been sat in a parked car for 9 hours at this point. And so she phones the police and sends him out to his vehicle. And he is in exactly the same area that he has been, still sat there in the car, wide awake. Police find no drugs or alcohol in the car or in his person. And they do a field sobriety test, like, can you touch your nose? Can you walk? Can you do all this? Which he's fine. And the police then phone Bryce's parents and say, look, we found him. He's in the car. He's okay. And And they say, do you want to speak to Bryce? And Bryce is like, I don't want to speak to my mum. And they're like, you are going to speak to your mum. Your mum is really, really worried. And I think she wishes now, Stephanie, she would have. And I think for his mum, she doesn't know what the truth is. She knows when she's speaking to Bryce, he sounds fine. He's adamant he's going to come home. I think she's worried about missing him on the side of the road. She doesn't know quite what's going on, but she's doing everything she can on her way of phoning the police, keeping everyone up to date, sending people out to him. I think she's just feeling so overwhelmed. The 1 minute he's at college saying he loves her and everything's going fine, the next he's just doing this madness, and she's just desperate to get him home. So Karen tells me at this point, look, keep your phone on so I can contact you. Stop putting me through this, Bryce. Whether you're going to go to sleep or you're going to come here, no matter what you're doing, keep your phone on. And he says to police, look, I'm going to head back to my parents' home. I just want to hang out with my old friends, blow off steam. I don't want to go back to college. And the police are like, okay, get on the road. They've done a field sobriety test, right? He's sober. They're like, get on the road, go and be with your parents and keep your phone on. So as the police left, Bryce and his parents, remain on contact for a few hours. And he's saying to his parents, I'm heading to your home, I'm heading to your home. And then he just goes ghost again. And they decide to call Christian back, the guy who did the gas originally. And they get the mechanic to drive back round at 10 p.m. And Bryce is still sat in his vehicle. The mechanic calls the Lapisas back and says, look, he's still here. And between Christian and Karen, they're on the phone in this freeway call trying to talk. He's holding the phone, Bryce is there. And they're finally able to get Bryce to leave. The mechanic follows him for 10 miles, making sure he's going towards his parents' home. They're like, you've got to go home. And they follow him for 10 miles. And he's like, then phones Karen. He's like, I followed him for 10 miles. He's on the way back to you. He's literally just over like 2.5 hours away from you. You'll see your son soon. If I can do anything else, let me know. So Karen and Mike beg Bryce, look, stay in contact with us. Call us every half an hour. Let us know you're okay. And Bryce, and leave your GPS on. And he goes, I'm going to be home by 3:25 a.m. And this has been going on for like over 24 hours now. Now that takes us to the morning of the 30th of August. The California Highway Patrol arrive at Lapisa's residence to inform them their son has been in a horrific car accident 2 hours away from their home. His vehicle has fallen 15 feet off a ravine and has landed on the passenger side. The car accident has taken place off the main ramp road near Lake Hughes Road, and his vehicle has been discovered by chance when they were doing training exercises out there. The exercise at the lake, which is right next to, were between 4:20 a.m. and 5:15. And when the police arrive, they discover that Bryce Lapisa's phone is there. His cell phone, his laptop, his clothes, his wallet were all inside the vehicle, but Bryce isn't there. They believe that because of the tyre tracks, Bryce has purposely accelerated off of the 25-foot section of the ravine before rolling across the ravine. There's no sign of Bryce, and the only thing found that proved that he was injured at all was 2 drops of blood on the whole crime scene. And they believe because of these 2 drops of blood that he is unhurt. He's unhurt. He's fine. I'm going to show you the area where it happened, actually. So this is the cell tower his phone last pings off of. And he's come off the road there and fallen off the ravine, which goes down to the lake at the bottom there. So he's rolled once the car, and it's quite clear from the crime scene that Bryce has used the tool from inside the car to break open the back window and climbed out of the back window and left the scene. Okay, this is a picture of Bryce's parents, actually. This is Karen, Michael, and who goes by Mike, and Bryce. So he's climbed out the back window. The last time Bryce had spoken to his parents that night had been just after 2 a.m. He told them he was driving along 5 freeway, but he couldn't see any signs to let him know his exact location. At 2:08, we know he gets off of the highway, telling his parents he was exhausted. It had been a long day and Bryce planned to sleep in his car in a suburban area, promising to call his mum in a few hours when he's back on the road. And his parents never heard from him again. Hundreds of police come out and search the scene. They even get divers into the Castaic Lake, hoping to find him. They cover about 2,200 acres. Divers search the lake. They bring in cadaver dogs, helicopters, heat sensor helicopters, but Bryce is never found. We're now 13 years after his disappearance. He has never been found. Bryce Laspisa was born on April the 30th, 1994. He was a redhead with green eyes. He was 5'11" and weighed 170 pounds. And his family remember him as being kind and extremely charismatic. At the time of his disappearance, Bryce had been wearing a blue and white shirt, white cargo shorts and size 12 Nike sneakers. Both his ears were pierced. He had 2 tattoos, his birthday in Roman numerals on his upper left arm, as well as a Taurus bull head. The police discovered during their investigation there was footage of Bryce driving along the Castaic Lake access road at 2:30, even though he told his parents he was sleeping at that time. And then he comes back at 4:29. We don't know where he was for the 2 hours in between that. And when bloodhounds were brought in, they were able to track Bryce's scent from the vehicle across a dam and to a truck stop. So he last went to a truck stop. A month after Bryce's car accident, a burnt body was discovered at that lake. His family feared it was him. It turned out to be the remains of a homicide victim from Los Angeles. It wasn't him. And in 2015, his parents hire a private investigation team to search the Castaic Lake area. They were dissatisfied with the police efforts up to that point, and they searched the whole of the lake for human remains. None were found. And he's been missing for 13 years now, and his whereabouts are still unknown. I believe that something happened to him at that truck stop. If they can see him, you know, at that lake area twice, we know he then rolled down the ravine. He survived. That was 2 drops of blood. Then we see him, you know, his scent going across the dam into the truck stop. We know that in the truck stop there's a lot of vagrants, there's a lot of truck drivers, there's a lot of bad stuff happening at truck stops. I think for the scent to go that way means he was picked up by somebody. And it's really, really suspicious, obviously, because of all of his kind of behaviour up until that point. It makes us think, like, well, he must have killed himself. He must have done this. But the fact that the bloodhounds trace him to that truck stop makes me think he did survive that accident and something untoward happened. Maybe somebody saw him as extremely vulnerable. Maybe he wasn't making a lot of sense. Maybe a serial killer, maybe someone along the highways, maybe somebody who just stumbled across him. Who knows? Maybe he hit his head and he doesn't know who he is today. Maybe he got a lift to the middle of California somewhere else and is now living as a vagrant or homeless person. Maybe he just never knew who he was afterwards. But I just don't know if I believe that Bryce is either dead or did this himself, because it just seems to be so many unanswered questions. Yeah, Ludo, I think, you know, it's such a bizarre story, but after 13 years, America's a big place. How many states? He could have woke up from a head injury and been like, I think I'm from Michigan. We don't know. He could have, you know, he's an adult. He looks like an adult, so there's little need to try and trace a family, right? If he just says no, I'm fine, and just goes on to live life. There's been loads of spottings. There was someone someone thought they'd spotted him in 2022 in Port Orford in Oregon. Also, there were spottings of him in Missouri and Montana that turned out not to be him. There's just been lots of people kind of think they may have spotted him, but he's never been found. The Pieces have started a Facebook group called Find Bryce, and they hope that the group will help keep him in the spotlight and maybe bring him home at some point. But I just don't see any clear end here. And a lot of people are like, well, he must have gone in the lake. The lake's been searched so many times, including by kind of like sonar radar and stuff like that. There doesn't seem to be anything. I'm just trying to see if there's you know, his mum was still begging for answers in 2025. Every time there was an anniversary, every time August rolled round. His is one of the biggest cases in true crime really in America because it's so mysterious.